We are back, long time no see, and it comes back to a big one, Coventry versus Leicester. Well, first thing I just want to say a massive thank you to those that follow and have messaged. All is well with matchplot, just a welcomed break that was needed. We're back on schedule and videos will be out for the remaining games. This video will be a bit different than usual, so buckle in. Let's get to it. Now, I don't want to say that the matchplot videos have been a good luck charm, but since our last video, we've not exactly had our best run, and our recent form has been, well, a bit of a concern, letting our 10-point gap at the top reduced down to 6, with Ipswich having a game in hand, so it could potentially be a bit tighter still. That said, we've had a tough run, and the squad has been stretched with injuries and illness. However, with some recent additions and a welcome break from the league, we are looking to get back on track. It always feels a bit much to say it's a must-win game, but this really does feel like an important one, potentially kicking off on the remainder of our season. Leicester, well, they're sat in 12, but they're certainly no mugs. Their squad is packed with quality, but tactically they've struggled to get results in, and form-wise, 2 wins in their last 5 isn't where they'll want to be. That said, with how tight the league is, they're only 4 points away from top 6, so it's all to play for, and this will be a massive game for them. Last time out, the teams played out a rather respectful 0-0 draw, no team wanting to overcommit, and perhaps you'd probably argue Leicester were edging that game. So what can we expect a second time around? Well, Leicester continue to play a 4-2-3-1 formation and have had a fairly consistent starting 11 in recent games. Changes into the Coventry fixture will likely come from their strong depth in wing positions, and whilst I'm not expecting too many changes, they certainly have quality on the bench to switch things up if they need to. Things have changed, however, since our last match preview. In the 0-0 draw, we spoke about the structure of the team being split into 2, the more defensive players who cover space in deeper positions, allow the play to build up, but also offer that defensive security for any turnovers in possession and quick breaks. Then you have the more attacking players who have the freedom to drive and push the opposition back. We can see on their average position in the away fixture, with Samare and Winks set in those deeper positions as double pivots, and allow the front 3 to be more attacking minded. When we pull up the pass map for that game, we can see the reflection of this, a cluster of passes in deeper areas to allow build-ups, passes to break lines, and then again a cluster of passes in more advanced positions. Fast forward to now, we can look at our Leicester game versus West Brom, and we can see the build-up largely being higher up the pitch in central areas, with the attack coming from down the wing. This stems from a change within the midfield. We're looking at the same 4-2-3-1 structure, but with James featuring in that deeper position on paper, he is in fact much more attacking minded and will find himself in much more advanced positions. In the game versus West Brom, he was actually more present down that right hand side, and this in turn provides more attacking outlet for them to build up, but in turn leaves Skip often isolated in deeper positions. So whilst they've gained some attacking outlet, they have sacrificed some defensive security. With the ball, Leicester will still look to start their attacks from building from the back. The back line will keep width and look to find avenues down the wing by shifting the ball side to side. Leicester have a lot of quality down the wing and actively look to progress the ball down either side. We haven't seen so much build up through those central areas in recent games unless it's come from moments of magic from individual players, but it's not something we've seen active passing lanes through. Players such as James can often drift wide, overload opposition wingbacks and cause issues for defences in wide areas. Both wingers like to drive down on each side, have trickery to take on a player, but also love to cut inside to get shots away. Both Coventry wingbacks will have their work cut out for them, and if they're left isolated by their wingers, it will be a tough day. When we look at Leicester's chance creation, they're actually 17th for expected goals and 18th for shots on target, and yet sat in 9th for goals per match, and it's a telltale sign of a team that can snatch a chance and finish with quality. You just have to look back at their last 4 to 5 goals just to see the quality they have. As a quick comment on individuals, I know Leicester have a lot of talk of their strong wingers, but James is a real player of threat and seems to have found some form in the last few games, being one of their better performers, not only scoring goals from distance, but causing havoc for defending teams to pick up and track. It's a real watch out. Now, defensively, there's a different story to be told, and one that I'm not sure I was expecting of Leicester at the start of the season. Straight into the stats, we can see that XG conceded, they're at 20th. At goals conceded, they're in 18th, which comes as quite a surprise. What may be even more of a surprise is that Leicester have failed to register a clean sheet in the league since the reverse fixture against Coventry in September. And in that time, there's been some hefty defeats. 3-0 loss to Southampton, 3-2 loss to Sheffield United, 4-1 to QPR, and another 3-1 to Sheffield United. So how do Leicester defend? Well, we previously looked at the defensive security of that double pivot midfield. However, Leicester looking to be a touch more attacking, they have lost that defensive security. And whereas whereas previously they had plenty of defensive cover, they can often find themselves isolated. Leicester have also had a higher defensive line in recent games, trying to push the gameplay closer to the opposition goal. However, it has been punished a few times. Now I'm going to pull up a few screenshots here just to give some visuals on this. Firstly, Leicester have had a really tough time defending those wide areas. With very attacking wingers and wing-backs, they can often be caught out positional-wise with space appearing to run into. This was in the West Brom game. It's a defensive line, it's very high, it's overcommitted players going forward, and a quick break leaves bags of space to run into. And we saw this time and time again, their wing-backs struggling to keep in this game, not just to keep positional discipline, but defending in general. Another example here, the same game. This time it's a long kitchen-esque pass from deep. On the receiving end, the winger is in truly acres of space. Now, I'm conscious of this being a bit of a hit piece here, but again, a screenshot here from the Sheffield United game. Bamford allowed bags of space with the right back nowhere to be found. Now, we spoke about that extra man in midfield being more forward. Well, in a defensive structure, Skip can often be left isolated in the middle. A snapshot here from their game versus Derby. If we flick to the next freeze frame, you can see that back four structure and now on the back foot. And also Skip, as you mentioned, isolated in the middle. Something more notable is if we flick further on the frames, the ball is eventually played wide and Leicester managed to track back in that defensive structure. Again, another frame later and the ball is played centrally. The space between that defence and midfield is huge. The tracking back from Leicester midfield is poor and disinterested and ample space to get a shot away. Derby being able to make this one count and actually score from this position as well. Leicester can be punished with these quicker style breaks. Slower build-up play allows them to be tucked in and compact and difficult to break down. In terms of without the ball, Leicester aren't a high-pressing team and are fairly comfortable with the teams having the ball in deeper areas. They're actually sat in 17th for possession one in the final third, so don't expect too much pressure on that back line. Overall for Leicester, it's a team that's really dangerous going forward, but certainly showing signs of fragility at the back. Speaking of which, on to Coventry. Well, things have fallen a touch flat in recent weeks and we're still await our first win of the year. Our overall stats for the season have us at 2.2 goals per match and conceding 1.1 goals per game, putting us as top goal scorers in the league and 5th best defence. However, since December, our goals per game is less than 1 and goals conceded is 1.375. It's certainly been an underperforming few months, and even our chance creation over the last few games has decreased from that initial start of the season. So I think it's time we have a look at what's really going on and, well, do we need to be concerned? I'll start off with the first major positive. We're still top of the table. Secondly, a bit of perspective is good. We had a very tough run of fixtures in December and January, and with our limited squad capacity, illness and injuries, it really did feel like certain players were running on fumes, and it's not surprising really. So what has been going on? Why is it not working? When we look at our average positions versus Birmingham, nothing really stands out. Players are, well, where you'd expect them to be. Passing structure is again pretty normal, perhaps a bit deeper than we've previously seen, but again, against the hot pressing Birmingham side, some fairly typical structures. So why does it feel so different going forward? Now, perhaps we can discount the Ipswich game. For large parts of the Charlton game, Birmingham game and Stoke game, we controlled large parts of it possession-wise. Yet moving forward, it feels so much more laboured and slower, and it often leads to positions such as this, where our slower, shorter style passing leads to the opposition getting plenty of men behind the ball and in clear structures. And this freeze frame here, Birmingham were able to get all 11 men behind the ball, and I know our strikers are getting pelters recently, but getting service into a striker with 11 men behind the ball, well, it's hard work. And this is actually Kitching with the ball here, and there's zero options moving forward, nothing out wide, so the ball is recycled back. Another snapshot here later in the game, similar scenario, just allowing teams to get back and be compact and difficult to break down. There's very little options going forward, and again, the ball's going to be recycled. And when I watched the Birmingham game, it felt like such hard work to create chances, and although overall I thought we played reasonably well, it just felt like our main threats were going to come from set pieces where we could commit men forward, albeit we did actually score 2 fantastic goals in this game, but just really struggling to find space. It's not a change you can really put down to stats, but more of our pace in transition. At the start of the season, we looked very direct, allowing space to open up for players to run into. It's the reason players like Thomas Asante had such great success. It kept teams stretched, players dragged out of position and passes being played in behind. A quick few snapshots from this Millwall game earlier in the season, and just look at the sort of space we were seeing with these quicker style breaks, particularly when you compare that to the Birmingham game. In recent games, it's all been quite stale and slow, and once the team gets men behind the ball in a solid defensive structure, it becomes very hard to break them down. If you can start finding space, we'll start seeing more opportunities in games. Now, that could be down to the fact we've been run ragged over the past few games with fatigue and illness, but it's something I'd like to see return. Now, to change direction, let's take a look defensively what's going on. We've certainly not been at our best. We've gone from one of the best defences in the league to feeling, well, a bit calamitous. And again, it's an easy jump to make to simply pick a player across the back line and make blame, albeit there has been some individual errors. It's errors that are occurring as a team. So let's get to it. Firstly, let's understand how we play and why we play that way. Coventry has a very high back line. Now, the intention here is with a high back line is to squeeze teams back, not allow them out, and look for teams to press as a collective unit, and ultimately win the ball back in vulnerable areas. A good example is the recent FA Cup game against Stoke. Stoke here trying to play the ball up, and that's actually Kitching putting the Stoke man under pressure. It forces them to lose the ball, and we're able to start an attack really high up the pitch, and we actually hit the post from this one. So what's going wrong? Well, as I say, it's a team effort, and it stems from the front to the back. A lot of issues we've faced in recent matches have been in transitional phases. In turnovers, we're slow to react and be disciplined in our shape, and teams have punished us. We can pull up a frame here in the Stoke game again. It's the Stoke defender playing a ball out directly through the Coventry press, completely bypassing the attack and the midfield. If we go to the next free frame again, we can just see how vulnerable the defence is in this position. As a defender, you're forced to make a decision here. It puts them on the back foot, and it's a very difficult position to be in to defend, and you get very little protection. This is another snapshot during the game. A long ball comes over, Kitchen gets his head to it, but that lack of cover in the front of defence means it's dropped to a Stoke player, and again we're on the back foot. The Coventry backline are strong and aggressive, but it's no secret they're not pace merchants, and yet we're putting them in positions where they're ultimately being tested when perhaps you want some more cover and support. It can make the game cagey as you want to commit men forward, but it's leaving you vulnerable at the back. Again, perhaps being overly critical here, but it's happened very frequently in the last few games. It's which caught us time and time again. The Birmingham game we controlled large parts yet allowed 3 attacks from them to win the game. This example from the throw-in deep in their half, simple flick on, finding space to turn, play a pass and simply not tracking runners, again causing us to be on the back foot. Now, I appreciate this is all a bit of a rant, however, I think a lot of this you can put down to the lack of fitness levels and illness in camp. At 100%, players possibly aren't losing those duels in central areas, they're possibly able to run back and make those challenges. For me personally, I'd like to see some more security in front of the defenders. I'm sure with some tweaks and a return of fitness, we should be looking much sharper. Now, it's certainly been a tough month, however, things are looking brighter. We've made some smart additions to the squad in Romain Esse and Yang Ming Yuk, which I think are 2 ideal signings to start the window, and here's why. Frank loves to play a 4-2-3-1, and the basic structure of play is to keep the team nice and high. Grimes can drop deep to dictate the play, and as the press comes, the ball is played around to find space and attack. Problem with that is it can be heavily reliant on our wing play, and with that reliance, it can fall flat. There's been games where, for example, the trickery from Sakamoto isn't working, and we're being forced back. Well, we finally have the options to mix the game up. We have different approaches. If the trickery isn't working, we can mix it up with pace and direct runs. It's actually something I critiqued at the start of the season, having those lack of options, so I'm glad to see it resolved. Esse for me is a really smart signing, really like his willingness to look forward and be attacking, showed bright spells against Stoke, and okay, sometimes it didn't work, but he kept trying and ultimately did create a few opportunities. The ability to play out wide and more centrally is really an attractive one. Shaping up against Leicester, I think we'll likely see the continue of that 4-2-3-1. Wolfenden will likely come in for the suspended Thomas, and I can see Esse and EMC on either side. I think they will cause havoc for the Leicester fullbacks. I also wouldn't be surprised to see Haji Wright start, albeit a harsh one for Sims. Top and Thomas Asante are rumoured to be back in the squad for the game, however it's unlikely we will see them start, with minutes being managed as they come back to fitness. Certainly have been missed. Tactically, I really want to see an advanced attacking line. If you allow Leicester to bully you into deeper positions, it will make it very challenging to break out from defensive positions, particularly when this is an area they've been vulnerable with those quicker breaks. Into key players. For Coventry, I'm going for Esse. Looked really bright versus Stoke, feeling his way into the game and squad, and I'm sure he'll want to prove himself. Leicester, I'm going for James. He's been a driving force for Leicester in recent games, very difficult to pin down, and scored some great goals too. Into predictions. I think you're going to see a refreshed Coventry going into this one. I'm expecting us to try and start fast. I do expect Leicester to go toe-to-toe though, and certainly got the quality to get a hold of the game. Leicester will look to drive down the wings with lots of overlaps and balls in behind. Beware of the cut-in from wingers to get shots away. Coventry, I think, will be more direct versus previous weeks. I'm expecting a lot more activity moving forward, with again lots of activity down those wings. I do feel like Coventry will cause issue for Leicester down those flanks. If the game starts to fade from Coventry's grasp, I can see the game getting quite fiery, potentially ascending off in there. This is a huge game for both teams and could change the rest of the season. The match plot model is feeling brave. 2-1 home win. Let's get it done, Super Frank. As always, thanks for watching. Your support is much appreciated. You let me know what you think the score will be, and until next time, cheers!